We start the summary of episode 7 with a flashback from Sion's past. We see him with a mysterious woman who hands him a small child and tells him that his name is Han. She promises him that she will come back to take the child no matter how long the absence lasts. But the promise is never fulfilled. Sion tries to call her, but the number is unavailable, so he leaves her a harsh message telling her that her silence means she is finished with his life. From that moment, he decides to erase her name and everything that reminds him of her, and he even changes her name on his phone to That Woman. Then we return to the present, from the same place where we left off in the previous episode. When Sion kisses Yoon, Yoon gets embarrassed and runs back to her house. He follows her. He notices that she is not acting like herself and apologizes for his lack of patience because when a man's heart ignites, he can no longer endure waiting. Yoon tries to close the subject, but she cannot. She acts nervously and insists on knowing who the woman she saw him with was. After hesitation and a long silence, Sion makes up a story and says that she is just an insurance agent, and he talks in a strange way about health insurance for ages that could reach more than 100 years. Yoon finds it odd, but temporarily accepts the explanation, while Sion's memory goes back to his old threat to that woman and his warning to her not to come near him again. Then the conversation moves to their agreement, and they confirm that they will keep waiting for 2 years, just as they agreed. Sion gets ready to leave, but then comes back and asks for just 1 day as a small break, a simple date, so that he can endure waiting for the 2 years. Yoon hesitates a little, and in the end she agrees to 1 day after finishing the Green Wings trip. On another line, we see Yoon's mother intending to travel to Shinsu after a sudden call from her daughter, who has been absent from her for more than a year, asking her for tickets to a song concert. Choi tries to stop her and tells her that she misunderstood the call and that he was working on a legal plan related to the assault case connected to Sion, but he admits that his plan stalled for a moment. Yoon's mother feels distrust and decides that she is ready to go herself and confront everyone if necessary. We then see the 3 grandmothers sitting together and talking about the accusation of a man for a mistake that could have ended in a disaster. Suddenly, Dong's grandmother sees someone from afar, and it turns out to be our hero, Sion, running and jumping between the fields, his face full of joy, as if he is the happiest person in the world. The grandmother is surprised and asks if he got sunstroke because he is walking and laughing to himself as if love has brought the soul back to his heart once again. After that, we see the students meeting and the hall is full of students. The professor begins to talk about Choi with great pride, speaking about his impressive career, graduating first in his class from the College of Law at Hanguk University, completing the 47th class at the Judicial Training Institute at the top of his cohort, proving exceptional talent as a junior lawyer at Sujan Law Firm, and winning the Outstanding Junior Lawyer Award. Before Hong can continue speaking, Choi interrupts him with a smile and asks him to stop because reviewing his entire resume might tire his voice. The hall bursts into laughter and the students immediately engage with him. Then Choi begins his speech and opens with a simple yet deep question. What is success in their opinion? In a persuasive manner, he explains that true success for him is not just a position or fame, but having a real support in your life. On the screen appears a file titled Support, and he explains that the first promise he gives to any client is that he will be there to support them no matter the circumstances. At that moment, he points to Yoon, and all eyes turn toward her. Choi continues talking about the injustice that anyone might go through and about the disappointments when people you trusted abandon you, leaving you feeling alone without any support. His words deeply touch Yoon, and she remembers her mother, while Choi summarizes the essence of the legal profession in one sentence: to always be a support. Han remains quiet, his eyes fixed on Sejin as if he sees something different in her that others do not notice. Later, he returns home and asks Sion for a small favor, requesting that he order ready-made meals for the Green Wings field trip. Sion is washing the dishes with a wide smile that never leaves his face, which immediately catches Han's attention. He jokes about Sion's strange smile that has become constant these days, and Sion admits that everyone keeps telling him he has been acting unusually. Han hands him a spoon and tells him to look at his reflection, asking what could possibly have changed him this much. Sion confesses that after the field trip, he will go on a one-day date with Miss Yoon and asks Han if he were in his place, wouldn't he be smiling all the time as well? Han understands his feelings, but warns him that excessive behavior might push her away. With blunt honesty, he tells Sion about Choi's appearance at the university that day, how well-dressed and composed he was, how he captivated everyone with his calm presence and eloquence, and how the entire hall stood up to applaud him. Han admits that even he, despite having no intention of becoming a lawyer, wished he were in Choi's place. Sion, clearly jealous, asks whether Yoon applauded him, and Han confirms that she was among the most enthusiastic. Sion squeezes the sponge tightly, his jealousy impossible to hide. Han reminds him of reality. They will not officially become a couple for 2 years, and during that time, Yoon has every right to see other men. He tells him to stop acting foolishly and to tone down the constant smile. Sion admits that he knows this, yet still asks Han to keep a close eye on Yoon during the field trip. The scene then returns to the university, where students and professors gather for breakfast. Hung excitedly tells his colleague about the moment Choi pointed at him and said, "I will be your support," describing how his breathing tightened and his heart raced. His colleague comments that Choi and Sion are nearly the same age, yet the difference between them is immense. Hung mocks Sion, wondering how women still flock to him despite what happened. Yoon overhears the conversation and cannot hold back, slamming her spoon on the table. She firmly states that Sion is not a thief, but someone who tried to catch one, and that the woman seen with him was not his lover, but merely an insurance agent. Hung laughs and questions whether their looks really matched a professional relationship. Sue asks Yoon how she knows all these details. Yoon becomes flustered, glances at them and then at her watch, makes an excuse about the field trip being late, and quickly leaves to escape the situation. However, Sue's curiosity refuses to let the matter go. She follows Yoon, cornering her with questions, and begins to suspect that there is something between her and Sion. Yoon tries to deny it, but Sue reminds her of the day she saw them together and how Sion entered Yoon's house. She admits that at first she thought he was just a criminal with a dragon tattoo on his arm, but after the sports day and seeing him catch the thief, her perception completely changed. She realized he was brave and kind, not the foolish man she had imagined, and hints that getting close to him makes it easy to grow attached without realizing it. Yoon attempts to justify the situation, explaining that he did not come to her house to get close to her, but because he saved the dog she adopted. Sue remains unconvinced, pointing out that Yoon has become prettier lately, with clear signs of love in her expression, and her suspicions deepen when she learns that Yoon is heading to the area where Han's uncle works. Yoon insists that the field trip for the Energy Club is the only reason for the visit. At that moment, the bus arrives, and Yoon excuses herself and boards quickly. On the way, her thoughts overwhelm her, fearing that rumors might spread among the students. She tries to steady herself, reminding herself that she must act cold if she sees Sion, and forces herself to recall the feeling she had the first time she saw him holding a chicken skewer. The group arrives at the farm, and the students are immediately amazed by the place, with one of them wishing the land were his because of how breathtaking it is. Yoon notices that Sion is nowhere to be seen and asks about him. Mr. Gu calls Sion only for him to appear standing high on top of a wind turbine pillar, as if no scene ever passes without him performing something reckless. He secures his safety harness while the students watch in shock, then suddenly jumps down, leaving everyone speechless. Moments later, he reappears holding a welcome sign for the Green Wings Club, instantly turning the atmosphere into laughter and excitement. The students feel as if they have just witnessed an action movie scene, while Sion explains that what they saw was not an act, but part of his daily work, since wind turbines are often damaged by birds or debris carried by strong winds, making constant inspection and maintenance necessary, both from the ground and from the air. One student excitedly declares that he has found a new dream, not marrying a famous celebrity, but joining an energy company instead. Everyone applauds Sion, who then turns to Yoon and asks for her opinion on the size of the company, clearly waiting for praise. Yoon responds coldly and asks to see the solar power plant as well. Sion asks Mr. Gu to take them there, where he explains the massive scale of the Shinsu solar station, the number of large units, the amount of energy produced annually, and the company's future plans, including entering the stock market within 3 years. Sejin joins the discussion with a sharp observation, pointing out that the business model is limited and could struggle without a strong competitive advantage. Impressed by her insight, Sion explains that the company reinvests a large portion of its profits into research and development to prevent pollution-related issues and performance decline. The students joke with him, with one teasingly asking if he wants another nephew. Sion smiles and once again looks to Yoon, clearly seeking a stronger reaction or even admiration. But she remains practical and requests a meeting with the CEO that same day, as Sejin was to learn more about power plant management. Sion asks Mr. Gu to accompany them to the office. Yoon introduces herself and the team as members of the Green Wings Energy Club from Shinsu High School, only for the shocking revelation to follow. The CEO they are waiting for is none other than Sion himself. The students are visibly stunned, their shock written all over their faces, while Sion confidently smiles and casually announces that he is the company's CEO. Still trying to process the surprise, Yoon turns to Han and asks if his uncle is truly the CEO, and Sion confirms it himself. The students joke that he looks like a fashion model on the cover of Forbes magazine, while the twins enthusiastically comment on his suit and fabric as if it were a luxury item, even going so far as to describe him as the perfect husband. One of them excitedly grabs the teacher's hand, but Yoon quickly pulls away. Han only makes things worse by bluntly stating that his uncle is the ideal marriage candidate, powerful, influential, and wealthy. Sion stops them and fixes his gaze on Yoon, clearly waiting for her honest opinion of him as a CEO. Yoon tries to avoid the question, her embarrassment obvious. Sion notices her shock and remarks that she is surprised to see him as the CEO. Yoon admits that she truly is, but quickly shifts the conversation into a professional direction, saying that his position could actually help them ask deeper questions about power plant management, before changing the subject entirely and asking about mealtime. Sion asks Mr. Gu to escort the group, and as Gu leaves, he laughs at Sion. After that, Sue stood in the street applying her lipstick when John suddenly appeared, joking about her martial arts moves and wondering why she was wearing makeup while training. Sue admitted that she wasn't actually going to the gym, which piqued John's curiosity and jealousy. He asked who she was dressing up for and whether she was going to see someone in particular. Later, Sue pointed out the young man who works with Choi and described him as kind. Meanwhile, the students gathered around the barbecue. Sion was cooking for Han and asked him about the trip, to which Han admitted it had been amazing. Suddenly, Sion's eyes met Yoon's, and Han asked why his teacher had been cold and distant all day. Yoon could not bear it and got up, walking away. Sion tried to follow her while continuing to cook, presenting the best piece of meat to the prisoner, justifying his choice with a smile, saying it was for the person closest to his heart. This touched the prisoner, who had been intending to give him a gift, so she handed over all her notebooks, saying she no longer needed his help, trying to conceive. Yoon sat alone, lost in thought, wondering why she felt so flustered and why she couldn't take her eyes off Sion, despite trying to convince herself otherwise. His presence and the way he carried himself made it impossible for her to resist. Sion approached her and asked if something was troubling her. She initially denied it, but then admitted that Sue had asked about the nature of their relationship and that Han and the twins had noticed her unusual behavior. Sion told her not to overthink, but Yoon decided that the date would not succeed under these circumstances. Sion slunked, admitting how long he had waited for this day and how hard he had tried to hide his smile. Yoon feared that their secret might be exposed, but he reassured her that he would plan everything carefully so that she would not feel anxious. Meanwhile, the prisoner returned home, her emotions in turmoil. She felt a sudden flutter in her heart and murmured to herself that her heart had almost betrayed her again, slowly realizing her feelings for Han, albeit rather late. Later, Choi noticed her distraction and her lateness to the lesson, asking if she had been so excited that she lost track of time. The prisoner analyzed Han's behavior, wondering if giving her a piece of meat could be considered a kind of confession or even a marriage proposal, believing that such generosity does not come without reason. Choi laughed at her thoughts, but she confidently replied that she was not one of those girls who falls in love merely because a young man is popular or offers empty compliments. She admitted she could not organize her thoughts and asked him to focus first on defeating Han's uncle rather than bombarding her with questions. Choi promised to help her concentrate and secure first place. Later, Seon called Yoon from beneath her window before dawn. Yoon emerged sleepy, surprised to see that it was 4:30 a.m. Seon considered the day to begin after midnight, while Yoon protested that the sun had not yet risen. He smiled and told her she looked beautiful even like this, joking that if she washed her face, he would have to plow the ground all over again. Yoon was curious where they were going at such an hour. Seon explained that the first activity of their date was to watch the sunrise in a secluded spot where they would not encounter anyone. The place was indeed quiet and empty. Seon reassured her, offering the food he had prepared and covering her if she felt cold. As the sun rose, the air grew warm, and Yoon dozed off, resting. Suddenly, Yoon noticed a group of young men training nearby. Startled, she screamed and covered herself, only to realize it was Dong and Sid. The young men were surprised to see Seon at that hour, and he tried to act as if he had come alone to watch the sunrise, claiming he was an introvert. They suggested going for a run together, but he declined, saying he wanted to sit by himself. Yoon tried to slip away after they left, but they returned shortly after, deciding to stop running and join him to watch the sunrise because he looked lonely. Everyone gathered around Seon, and Yoon stayed hidden, clinging to him so tightly that he began to struggle for breath. Dong noticed and grew concerned, and Seon explained that he hadn't slept well the night before. They then sat down to eat the food Seon had prepared for Yoon, and she felt guilty for putting him in this awkward situation. Seon reassured her that no one had seen anything except the blanket, joking that the boys had eaten all the food. Yoon said that food no longer mattered, but Seon insisted that since it was their first date, she had to eat properly. Later, he took her up a mountain path and told her about a special gukbap restaurant he had discovered recently, secluded from everyone and never visited by anyone from Sinshu. Upon arrival, they were surprised to see the manager with his wife. Yoon grew nervous and tried to conceal the situation, treating him as if he were Han's uncle, surprised to see him there at that time. The manager laughed and explained that it was their wedding anniversary and that he had come to this restaurant on his first date with his wife 32 years ago. Yoon wished them happiness and sat away from Seon, feeling increasingly tense. Meanwhile, Sue was out with Choi's partner, heading to the amusement park, while John watched them from a distance, his heart full of jealousy. Sue quickly tried to pay the bill, but John intervened, telling her to calm down and not to rush, instructing her to behave, as if to say women shouldn't always pay. Sue was surprised to see John and asked what he was doing there. Moments later, they were riding the horses, and John asked the man why he had come to town. He replied coldly that he had come to work, as was obvious. John disapproved of the situation and told him to finish his work and leave. Meanwhile, Seon and Yoon arrived at the amusement park. From the first glance, Seon noticed the crowds and thought there was no point in staying, suggesting they leave. But Yoon had a different idea, believing that staying among the crowds was safer, especially with exams approaching, and that they were unlikely to encounter teachers or students there. Little did Yoon know what awaited her as she ran, her smile never leaving her face. Seon chased after her, and at that moment, Sue and her partner appeared, making it clear that they were escaping from John. Suddenly, Yoon stopped in front of one of the rides and nostalgically spoke about an old dream she had, to visit an amusement park with her boyfriend. But before she could continue, her eyes met Sue's. Quickly, she grabbed Seon's arm and asked him not to look. Sue noticed and tried to follow them, but her partner stopped her, unable to handle the ride. Nevertheless, Sue insisted, dragging him into the ride. Inside, Yoon was running when suddenly a girl appeared before her, frighteningly ghost-like, as the ride was designed as a haunted house. Yoon was scared at first, but quickly composed herself, fought off the girl, and managed to escape with Seon, hiding together in a cupboard. Sue entered and began searching for them, but by chance she opened another cupboard containing a spiritual girl, which frightened her and caused her to run away. Later that night, the same woman returned to Seon's house. She had intended to leave, but upon seeing Han arrive, she called out to him by name, as if she were certain she knew him. Seon and Yoon stayed together until late at night. Yoon reflected on how much they had accomplished on their very first day together. Seon agreed, but he felt something was missing. They hadn't seen the sunrise properly or eaten at a restaurant like any ordinary couple. Yoon confessed that she had wished to enjoy the amusement park a bit more, even just a little. Seon asked her if she had actually liked the rides, and she replied that it wasn't about the rides. She simply wanted a normal date, like any other couple. At that moment, Seon made a decision. If this was what she truly wanted, he was ready to make it happen. He took her to an abandoned, simple area with a few old rides. He helped her onto a swing and began pushing her gently. Yoon laughed from the bottom of her heart, so happy that her whole face seemed to glow. At that moment, memories of her time with Seon at the amusement park began returning to her, one by one. Time passed quickly, and soon it was time to say goodbye. Yoon felt that they should stop there. Seon asked her to allow him to say 3 final things. Playfully, she told him she wasn't interested in romance, but he interrupted her in a strange way, talking about calories and healthy nutrition. Yoon was confused and asked if this was the right time to discuss carbohydrates, and he explained that all he wanted was for her to take care of herself, even when he wasn't around. The second thing he said was even stranger. He told her that if anyone ever harmed her, she should send him their name and he would take care of it, to the point that he would wish for death. The final thing was a gift, which he told her to open only if she missed him so much that she could no longer bear it. It was then Yoon's turn. First, she told him to learn to be a little braver and not to interfere in others' problems, and if he saw injustice, to suppress his anger. The second thing was a gentle warning. He should never wear a formal suit in front of other women. When he asked about the third, she merely smiled and said there was nothing. She said goodbye and walked away, leaving Seon standing there, sorrow in his eyes. But suddenly, Yoon returned, remembering that there were still 20 minutes left. She asked to say what she hadn't been able to say before and requested that he hug her. Seon drew close and embraced her, while from a distance someone was watching them. But who was it? That we would only find out in the next episode.